They thought he'd be on TV forever. For more than a decade, whenever Salvage Hunters came on, you knew exactly what you were getting. Drew Pritchard, a van full of dust and diesel, and a genius eye for turning junk into money. So when he appeared online in 2025 and calmly said that the next series of Salvage Hunters would be his last, fans weren't just surprised. They were worried. Why would the face of the show walk away now, after 20 series, a global audience, and a reputation as one of Britain's most famous antique dealers? To understand what really happened to Drew Pritchard, you have to go back to the beginning. Before the scandal, before the bathhouse, and before the shop doors closed for good. Drew didn't start out as a TV personality. He began as a restorer, working with stained glass and architectural features long before there was a camera in sight. Those early years taught him two things that would define his career: how to spot quality in a split second and how to bring broken things back to life. When Salvage Hunters launched in 2011, it wasn't sold as a glossy makeover show. It was one man driving around the country in a battered van, rooting through barns, factories, and country houses, and risking his own money every time he shook someone's hand. He made it clear from day one. The deals were real, the prices were real, and if a buy went wrong, it was his problem, not the production company's. That honesty is exactly why the show worked. Most viewers don't know the difference between an 18th century table and a 1970s repro, but they can feel when something is genuine. Watching Drew haggle, win, lose, and occasionally make a terrible mistake made him relatable. He wasn't just on TV. He was a working dealer letting cameras into his actual life. Part of that life included Rebecca Pritchard. On screen, Rebecca was calm, analytical, and direct, the perfect counterbalance to Drew's instinct-driven hunting style. Off-screen, the two had been married for years, building both a family and a business together. To viewers, they looked like the ideal antiques power couple. He did the chasing, she did the numbers. Together, they turned forgotten salvage into serious profit. But away from the cameras, cracks were starting to show. In 2017, Drew's private life suddenly became very public. UK tabloids reported that he had been involved with a married woman, and that her husband, Bryn or Janus Thomas, a crane firm boss, confronted him in a pub in Conwy. The reports say the argument turned violent. Drew was punched several times, and the man later ended up in court for assault. For a TV personality, that kind of story spreads fast. Overnight, the antique dealer fans knew from Salvage Hunters was being discussed for all the wrong reasons. There were further claims that he was later placed on a pub watch scheme in the area after another incident, effectively banning him from several local pubs for a period. Whether every detail in the papers was fair or not, the damage to his reputation was done. Around that same time, Drew and Rebecca's marriage ended. They never sat down in front of the cameras to explain why. No big joint statement, no tell-all interview. What we do know is that by the late 2010s, the two were officially divorced, but still standing side by side in the showroom and on the show. That alone tells you something about both of them. They were willing to keep the business going, even when their personal life had fallen apart. While all of this was unfolding, Drew's world in North Wales continued to grow. This home wasn't just any house. It was a converted Methodist chapel in Conwy that he bought back in the mid-1990s when it was practically falling down. Over more than 20 years, he turned it into a landmark. High ceilings, gallery railings, and every surface covered in antiques, from church pews to a toilet supposedly once owned by Mick Jagger. Then there was the Conwy shop. What started as a place to buy and sell architectural antiques turned into a destination. Fans drove hours just to stand where Drew stood on TV. The shop brought money into the town, boosted tourism, and became part of the local identity. And then, in 2022, he closed it. No huge scandal, no dramatic rant, just a simple announcement that it was time to move on. For people who had built Visit Drew's shop into their travel plans, it felt like the end of an era. For Drew, it was a sign of something else. He was shifting his life away from the place where everything had started. Good memories, bad headlines, and all. The next chapter was bigger, much bigger. Instead of another quirky chapel, Drew set his sights on a Georgian townhouse in Bath, a Grade 1 listed building in one of the most desirable historic areas in the UK. The project was so ambitious, it became its own spin-off series, Salvage Hunters Georgian House Restoration. On paper, it looked like the perfect move. Take a famous salvage dealer, give him a crumbling Georgian gem, and watch him turn it into a masterpiece. In reality, restoring a protected building in a city like Bath is brutally expensive. The costs, the materials, specialists, and approvals don't just creep up, they explode. Drew set a budget. Then the budget evaporated. As the months went by, expenses kept climbing. Every hidden structural problem, every outdated pipe, every new regulation took another bite out of his bank account. Eventually, he admitted on camera that he'd run out of money and had to stop work on parts of the house. To keep the project alive at all, he did something that hurt more than most people realize. He started selling off his own collection. Not just shop stock, his personal pieces. Items he'd held on to for 20 or 30 years. Old fairground figures. Rare industrial pieces. Quirky one-offs from all over Europe. Hundreds of them went to auction. Some sold well, some didn't reach their reserve. And even after the dust settled, the money still wasn't enough to finish the entire house. So Drew made a compromise. Instead of walking away, he focused on making part of the building livable, finishing bedrooms and bathrooms on the upper floors, and accepted that the rest would have to wait. For a man whose whole identity is about completing restorations, about saving old things properly, that half-finished reality was a heavy thing to live with. Meanwhile, back on Salvage Hunters, another familiar face disappeared. John T. had been there from the beginning in the eyes of most fans. The van driver, the heavy lifter, the guy making dry jokes while Drew dug through junk. Their chemistry was easy to watch, and for many people, T felt like Drew's on-screen brother. So when viewers realized T was gone, rumors exploded. Was there a falling out? Did someone get fired? Was this more drama behind the scenes? The boring truth is more human. T's departure was confirmed after more than a decade on the road, and Drew later explained that T simply wanted more time at home with his young family and to move on to other things. They were still friends, still in touch, just no longer filming long days together for TV. To keep the show evolving, new dealers stepped in. People like Alistair Dryberg and Vicky Knott. They weren't replacements so much as a new phase. Different eyes, different tastes, different customer bases. The deals were still real, but the energy of the series changed. And in the middle of that change, Drew himself was quietly deciding how much longer he could keep doing this at the same pace. By 2025, the answer finally came, in a video message to fans. Drew explained that after a lot of thought, the next series of Salvage Hunters, filmed the previous year and scheduled for autumn, would be his last. The 20th series. 2 decades worth of TV in series count, and nearly a decade and a half of his life. There was no meltdown, no dramatic "I've been fired" story. Just a man in his mid-50s saying, in effect, "I've done what I set out to do, it's time." What made his announcement feel so heavy is everything that came before it. He'd weathered a public scandal. He'd watched a long marriage end, kept working alongside his ex, and seen another key friend step away from the cameras. He'd closed the shop that put Conwy on the antiques map. He'd poured a fortune into a Georgian townhouse and admitted openly that he'd run out of money trying to finish it. At some point, anyone with that much history behind them has to decide what the rest of their life is going to look like. For Drew, that doesn't mean disappearing. His online business is still active. He's opened a new showroom in Tedbury in the Cotswolds. Smaller, more focused, but still full of the kind of pieces only he would pick. He's still hunting, still buying, still restoring. And if the reports are accurate, he's also built a new life away from the cameras. A new marriage, a home in Bath, and more time to indulge his obsession with classic cars and quiet restoration projects, instead of constant filming and travel. So, what really happened to Drew Pritchard from Salvage Hunters? It wasn't one single moment. It was a slow, complicated combination of success and strain. A career built on real risk, A personal life dragged through the tabloids, a dream house that cost more than he expected, and the simple fact that no one can keep running at full speed forever. He didn't vanish, he pivoted, from being the face of a TV show to being what he always was first, a dealer, a restorer, and a man who loves old things enough to keep bringing them back, even when it costs him more than anyone watching at home will ever know. If you've ever wondered where he went, he didn't. He just stepped out of your TV and back into his life.